This show is not meant for children. Go to bed, kids. Bad things are about to happen. We don't want you to see it. Exactly, and as you can tell now, I am no longer forever alone. Here with me now is the MangaMan himself, MangaMan.
Konnichiwa, everyone.
So now that I finally have someone, we can start doing this review properly. Because I'm just going to be honest, I did not have this on my own. There was no way I was going to be able to do this. But now, you're here, we can really dig into this thing and really start doing what needs to be done.
Yes.
Awesome.
Dissecting it piece by piece.
And then sitting here for the next 10 hours doing so. I wish we had time to do it episode by episode. That'd be great.
That would have been great. But honestly, from watching both series, I've only seen a total of 4 major differences between the two.
Yeah. Otherwise, there's really, there's a lot of little things, but for the most part, there's only just a few, just really, really big things. Yeah, so, I've already talked about, the way that I talked about all the differences in the very first episode, so, you want to go ahead and share your thoughts on what happened there?
Okay, well, the major difference for the first episode that I would have to say is the biggest difference between the two is in the original Guyver series, is how Sho activates the Guyver armor, or how he acquires it. In the original show, he was messing around with the Guyver suit when something spooked him, and he accidentally headbutts the thing, thus activating it. But in the new series, they do something a little bit different, and I really like what they do here. In the new series, Sho's friend, help me out here, what's his name?
Tetsuro,
that's it. I keep on thinking Tetsuka or Tsubaka, but no, it's Tetsuko. Wait, now I missed it.
Tetsuro. There we go.
Anyways, Tetsuro was originally the one that was messing around with it and activated it himself. But he freaks out and throws it to Sho, and then the Guyver suit latches onto him. And that adds a really, really great character dynamic between the two of them. It really tests the limits of their friendships. There was a point in later episode where Sho almost blames God damn it.
Tetsuro.
I'm gonna type it here.
I was about to do the same thing.
There we go. Almost blames Tetsuro for putting him in this whole mess of things. Did you already kind of explain the premise of the Guyver?
Yeah, I have explained the overall plot summary. I haven't really gone into what the Guyver is yet. I've talked a bit about, Kronos and what they're doing, what the Zoanoids are. Not deep into what the Zoanoids are, just say, hey, these are people that they've made that can turn into big monsters, y'all.
Yeah, and they believe in Scientology.
Yeah, I think this is more legitimate than Scientology still.
Agreed.
They at least have scientific evidence in this universe to back their stuff up. Or so we've heard. Not seen. But yeah, that's the really, really big difference. Otherwise, it's just what monsters they introduced, character conversations. That's pretty much the only other things that have changed up in the first episode.
Right. What did you think about the change that they did between how Sho gets the armor?
I personally, this is one of the things, I like the way they did it better in the newer one.
Yeah.
Because with the way they introduced the characters, Tetsuro did seem more likely to be the one to pick the character, but how he gushed about it looking something like out of a sci-fi movie. And Sho actually displayed some level of comments like, dude, this thing landed in front of us after we heard that really, really big explosion. Why are you messing with this thing?
Yeah.
He actually displayed some common sense. Otherwise, I prefer the way they did it, especially with how, why they were in the woods. Because in the first one, Tetsuro's all like, hey, let's go out in the woods behind the school.
Yeah.
No reasoning whatsoever given. Just, let's go to the woods.
I'll show you something.
I've made the joke already. At least in the new one, he's like, hey, dude, let's go hang out for a bit. I got some stuff I want to talk about. At least he provided a semi-reason for being there.
I know, and I really liked how in the new series they really focus a lot more on Sho and Tetsuro's relationship as their friendship. It really like kind of test the boundaries that each that one and the other is willing to go for the other.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really nice because, surprisingly, I don't see too many animes that really dive into friendships, which is weird because you would think that there'd be a lot of those.
Yeah. I mean, and especially when it comes to something like this. Whenever all the focus is on, most of the focus is on, you know, all the action scenes. Let's see how much blood we can spill, how many monsters we can throw at stuff, how many awesome fight scenes we can have. You know, you don't really see a lot, especially with something like this. Which I thought, you know, it was a really nice change of pace. I thoroughly enjoyed both, but there are obviously things that one did better than the other.
Yeah, speaking of which, although I do praise the new one for how they handled Sho's transformation into the Guyver, I have to give the point to the older series for this next topic. The introduction and subsequent death of the second Guyver.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in the first series, how this happens is that, help me out, what was the guy's name? I thought it was like...
It's like Risker, one of those two.
Risker. Yeah. Yeah. Risker is like a head honcho or one of the corporate heads of the Kronos organization. And he actually gets a hold of the second Guyver unit, which, even though it appeared to be slightly damaged, he put it on anyways regardless.
Mm-hmm.
And in his first fight with Sho, it was pretty clear that in both series that Strider was wiping the floor with him. Like, there was no way that Sho was able to get out of the situation. And I'm going to first... Okay, well, no, I'll tell you what happens in the original series. In the original series, the second Guyver appears and dies within the first episode. Well, the first episode of his appearance, he dies. And what this does to Sho, what this does is that it shows that, yes, these Guyver suits are amazingly powerful, but they can potentially kill you.
Yes, they can...
That scene of the Guyver suit devouring the second Guyver dude.
Yes, and again, I showed the picture of the Guyver 1 unit earlier. Each Guyver suit is different. There's, like I said, there's 3 of them in total, and Kronos was only able to pick up the second unit. That's the only one they found. They couldn't find the third one because they don't know that someone else already bloody has it.
Yep.
So, again, the second unit they recovered was damaged. Lisker gets hold of it. Bam, I'm the Guyver 2. Yeah, and each one looks different, because the Guyver 1 unit I showed you earlier has that green look to it, and if you remember, that big silver button on the top is what they refer to as a control medal.
Yes.
This is the one thing that keeps the Guyver unit in check and keeps the human pilot in sync with it properly. Exactly, in control, the control medal. If you remove this, the Guyver suit literally eats you alive. And that's pretty much how, Sho manages to kill the second Guyver. Because
his control medal was already damaged, which made him falter, and then all Sho had to do is just finish off and shatter the control medal, and at which point he won.
Shattered the control medal, then suddenly he's eaten alive by the Guyver. I like how, I'm half and half on it. As far as how they handled the situation itself, the fight, I like how they ended it in the older one. But the Guyver units are supposed to be, again, these super powerful units of doom and death. I like in the remake how they gave Lisker more character development, how they put off the final fight between the two a bit longer.
I'm not too sure it was wise of them to do that, though, because you gotta think of it in context. With the death of Risker at near the beginning of the series in the original one, it like brought forth the risk involved. Risker.
Lol. See what you did there, anime. Good job.
The risk involved in using these Guyver suits, and that it could potentially kill you. And that really struck a chord when later on in the series, spoiler alert, Sho appears to have died when his own control metal gets pulled out of his Guyver suit and he just disintegrates. Now that was really good for the original series because we already saw what happened to Risker, so that was just like, oh man, he's dead. Oh my god. It's like even the audience themselves believe that Sho is dead.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas within the new series, by delaying Risker's death until later on, because he dies after it appears Sho dies, and I really didn't like that because with the original series, they showed the risk involved right on, so that added a lot more tension, a lot more drama to it. But what did they really even do with Risker in between his first fight with Sho and his final fight? He like banters with a couple of the other Zoonoids. He kind of does some shady stuff in the background, but he doesn't really put on the Guyver suit again until the very final fight.
True. I think they should have handled it differently, but it was a good idea. But yeah, I see your point completely.
Mm-hmm. It was the show. It was the first one did it so good because it, as I keep repeating, it showed the risk. It was like, it would be like, say, in I know this is kind of a bad example, but it would be kind of like in, think of it like in Dragon Ball Z, when Goku first dies, and this is before, like, back in Dragon Ball, nobody ever wished a person back to life, so no one ever thought to do that. But when Goku dies, it's like, oh my god, Goku's dead! Of course, later on, they abused the Dragon Balls to the nth degree, but
yeah,
still.
they'd revived a couple people in Dragon Ball, but it's like, well then, death was still supposed to be a major thing at this point for a character, especially when you've had 150 episodes of build-up for this character in the original, and now right there at the beginning of the new series, you kill him off. That's a big deal.
It is.
And it's not an entirely bad example. It works.
Yeah. But yeah, that was the second big difference that I saw between the two series. The third big difference between the two is, of course, their length. The original series lasted only 13 episodes, whereas the new series only covered 26 episodes. But what I found really peculiar is that both series are incomplete stories.
Mm-hmm. That's one of my major issues with both. Now, as I said, whenever we decided we're going to do this, I'd only seen the first 6 episodes of the original because I didn't know there was another part. And I know you'd think that was weird. You'd think that would be weird if me not knowing there's another part to this. But I defend it by saying, and I think you may agree with me on this, MangaMan.
Yeah.
The 6th episode feels like an ending. They didn't really explain everything, but
it was the fall of Kronos.
That's exactly. They didn't go around saying, "Oh well, we're completely worldwide. We have more than just, way more than just this." Because they keep referring, as to the Japan branch as like the head of Zoonoid development, and everything seems to be centered around this place as like the head of everything, and then suddenly at the end of the 6th episode, like the major guy above everything seemingly shows up. He supposedly gets killed. They've already revealed the biggest and baddest Zoonoids they've ever produced. They've all gone down. The Japan branch building has completely fallen. Sho supposedly gets the girl he's after, which is Tetsuro's sister. I haven't explained that yet. Oh, yeah. And everything, we've revealed who the third Guyver is. Everything seems to have come out in the end, and it felt like an ending. Even more so than the last episode of either one.
Well, I think issue with both of them is that according to the Wikipedia page of the Guyver manga series, apparently the manga is still going on.
Well then.
Yeah, it started in 1985, and as far as it looks like, the last volume was released in 2011.
And they still haven't finished it.
Apparently. Must be on hiatus or something. I have no idea.
I would hope so, because if this is how they ended it, if this is how they chose to end it, just no. No, you don't... I'm sorry, but again, I went from watching 6 episodes to the 26th episode version. I didn't see the last 6 of the OVA until this. And it just... To me, there is a lot that the newer one handled better overall.
Well, yeah, because it had more episodes to kind of, pace things out, develop the characters more.
And it explained a lot more, too.
True.
It's like, one, again, I completely see your point about Risker. But what I'm glad they did in the new one is wait until a little bit later to actually show what they're referred to as Hyperzoanoid Team 5. Mm-hmm. And actually made them stronger in the new one. Now,
yeah, that I liked better.
Now, you have your regular Zoanoids that supposedly the Japan branch is at the head of the development of, supposedly, incoming glaring plot hole. But apparently other scientists from other branches of Kronos have developed even more powerful Zoanoids they call Hyperzoanoids. And this one guy, they never really explained what part of the world he's from, named Dr. Barkus.
Oh yeah, he was one of the Zoa Lords.
Yeah, we'll get to the Zoa Lords in a minute. That's another thing that I think the new one did better.
Well, again, it's because they had enough time to get into the Zoa Lords.
Yeah, like they just kind of mentioned the Zoa Lords in the 12-episode version, and with all kinds of surprise, oh, is he a Zoa Lord? And then they just kind of drop it right there. But right, but yes, supposedly Dr. Barkus himself created these and brought him with him in towards the middle point of the new version. Mm-hmm. And in the old one, they're with Richard Guillot, who's supposed to in the OVA, he's supposed to be the big head boss of stuff of everything.
Of Kronos, yeah.
Yeah. And he brings them with him, and they pretty much get wiped out. Until, the last one absorbs the power of one of the other ones and goes all, super hardcore in rage mode. I'm gonna glow all gold. I'm gonna blow some stuff up, yeah.
I could tell what probably happened for both series, with the original Guyver series. They probably had to stop when the manga was in its hiatus period. And it just so happened to happen with the new series too. It's there's not really much you can do if the manga needs time to develop more. But I don't know what they're doing now. It's been 2 years since the last volume came out.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how long this thing is overall. Because,
in terms of volumes, there are 28 volumes.
Well then, if they would finish it, I might be inclined to check those out, because I don't mind a slightly long manga series, especially whenever I've seen the animes and they both end on cliffhangers. Well, the newer one on a much bigger one, which is my huge bone to pick with that one, because I didn't know it was going to end like that, and I screamed in rage the first time I saw it. Really, this is how you're just no, don't do this to me. Oh, good lord.
Well, the only other option they could have done was to continue on without the manga, and that could have mixed results.
Yeah, that generally tends to either end really bad or meh. Sometimes it ends fairly well.
Yeah, like Full Metal Alchemist.
The first series was pretty darn good. I have to admit that. I avoided it for a long time, but I finally broke down and watched it. I'm like, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah. It was one of my first favorite animes when I was watching it back on TV back in the day.
Yes. So, otherwise, again, the only, like, a lot of the earlier episodes were just used to kind of build up and show off the Guyver's powers without exploding all of them in one episode like the OVAs did.
Right.
And not explaining what all these were. He just suddenly starts using new attacks other than, his, again, I explained earlier how his chest opens up to reveal the super awesome laser cannon of doom. They call them Mega Smasher. And those little jutting blades on his elbows extend. And they're vibrate at a high frequency so they can cut through practically anything. And after that, he gets some new abilities that they never really explain. He just kind of does them.
He has a head beam, high frequency swords, gravity control orb, hypersense, and of course his control medal and vibration globes or sonic burst.
Yeah. And again, the only one they really fully explain, I mean, the head laser thing is kind of self-explanatory.
It's a head laser.
Yeah, but that sounds pressure cannon thing that he does through the sound pressure thing that he shoots like out of the mouth orbs or whatever.
Yeah.
That doesn't get explained in the original OVA. Neither does the gravity control thing. They just kind of like one of the hyperzoids goes all like, "Whoa, is that a gravity control?" Really? You figured that out just by watching him fire a pressurized beam of nothing? That's not really self-explanatory.
Well, maybe to a Zoonoid it is.
Maybe being a hyperzoid gives you hyper intelligence that you can selectively exercise.
I read ahead in the script.
Jeez. Hope I don't get blasted by tit lasers later on.
I don't. That's the. I love the Mega Smasher, but you just gotta think like titty laser.
Yeah, like you couldn't have done that in a different way because that just seems a little weird. Whatever. Far be it for me to judge you because you have boob lasers. Good job.
Well, the Guyver suit is kind of more of like a. It's a living thing that is like wrapped around show to kind of like boost his power. So if it's a living thing like that, okay, I can understand a little bit like that. You know what's also funny is that there is another short OVA movie called I have the wiki up here. It was like the Guyver Out of Control.
I did not watch that.
I didn't watch it either, but apparently it's the first appearance of a female Guyver.
Really? Well then.
Yes, and
so
there's one really... the biggest thing about this one is it's... I'll just read this right here. The OVA is well known for a scene resembling tentacle rape, where the Guyver 2 unit bonds with Valkyria.
Well then. And I've seen enough hentai to know where this is going joke already. Ugh.
Yes.
Tentacles.
I didn't really think about it when, like, any of the dudes were, like, getting that, essentially tentacle raped.
That must have felt really, really awkward, though I'm sure that's not what was going through their heads at the moment. Suddenly, squid, metal, tentacle rape of doom, and now I have superpowers. Well then.
Oh. Well, at first it hurt, but, now that I feel it, it feels so good.
Oh my.
Oh my.
Yes. And again, we go to the physical differences between the three Guyver units, because we finally get introduced to the third Guyver unit before the fall of Kronos Japan.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a black armor, and he's got 4 blades instead of just 2. And somehow he knows more about the Guyver unit than anyone, despite no one knowing anything about it.
Overpowered.
Yeah. Shame on him. How do you know how all this stuff works?
He probably learned about it through his connections at Kronos?
Perhaps.
Or maybe since he got a hold of his unit, he was just playing around with it to try to figure out everything.
I'd like to believe that as more of a the more plausible scenario is because I mean they even explicitly mentioned that Kronos knows nothing about the Guyver units. They had apparently only just recently found them and were transferred from Relic's Point, which is where a lot of this stuff started. You know, we get into that in a bit. You know, and they were supposed to start studying them, and then the guy in the beginning steals them. We can only assume that he was meeting with the guy who became the third Guyver unit, whose name is Makishima, who is apparently the adopted son of the guy who headed Kronos Japan.
One last thing. The fourth major difference that I found between the two Guyver animes are their opening songs.
Oh, yes. In the original version, the opening theme was actually about the Guyver. And it had that 1980s charm to it. I kind of liked it.
It was catchy. I prefer the older version. I'm sending you a link to play.
Yes, because we can get away with playing an intro on here. But as far as like the song itself, I thoroughly enjoyed the newer one. I just for some reason I really like that song. So
I didn't really like the new. Well, first played the old one.
Right. So this right here, we're gonna bring this up because we can actually get away with playing an intro on here. So we're gonna show you right here. This is the intro to the 1980s version.
An infinite energy beyond scientific understanding.
Oh, English dubs.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah. It's a thing. I watched it. I watched this first in English too. Because at the time this was licensed in the US.
By Manga Video.
Mm-hmm.
Is it playing? I can't tell.
Yeah, it's playing.
Oh.
Is it not showing up on the live stream?
I'm not on the live stream.
Ah, gotcha.
I'll go there now.
And it's important to note that many of these scenes were ripped directly out of the anime itself and then just put over a different background.
It was what it was back in the day.
It had that 1980s charm to it. Despite some of the glaring holes in it from it being so short, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It just had that feel to it.
And I'm the proud owner of it. It's the 8th, right?
The 8th?
Yeah, June 8th. July 8th. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah,
Can you send me a link to it?
A link to what?
The live stream.
Yes. One uno momento. And copy. Bam! That is a link to the live stream.
What?
And oh, I actually had the blasted year wrong. I've been saying this whole time the new one was released in 2006. I was apparently wrong. So it was released in 2005.
Must have ended at 2006.
Yeah, I think so. I just remember that, I know years ago Best Buy had this, like, really, really huge anime sale to clear out their stock because they were going to stop carrying everything and just stick to, like, the most popular titles. And then I saw this on their shelf and everything was 50% off, so I'm like, bye. So yes, and this one is the intro for the remake. which used a completely different song and a completely original opening.
The one thing I don't really like about this new song is the singer of it. Because she's just so, like, same note. She just keeps that same tone in her voice. Whereas the other one, like, would, you know, get more into it. Like, you would first start slow, and then you'd be Guyver, Guyver, setting song. You know?
Yeah. I don't know. I just really, really like this. And I can't really explain why. I just thoroughly enjoy. I actually like her voice.
I like the original better.
Yeah. We each have our opinions, as long as we know that each other is we're both wrong. I'm right.
According to the viewers.
Yes, but that is the new intro.
Yep.
Oh my. So, with that, things everywhere. All kinds of things.
Yes, what to talk about next with the Guyver. Shall we go from where the original ended off and the new one started back up and continued?
Yes, I like this idea. As well as some of the differences as to what had happened up to that point, because as far as I can tell from what it looks like, you know, each OVA was its own separate volume, and it looks like each part was made in and of for itself, because there were some characters that were introduced in the second one that could have been done in the first one, like Sho's father, for instance, who played a rather huge role in the second one, but he got like zero character development. He was just literally, it's like he shows up in the second half and like, wait, why is he only showing up now? He's been mentioned in the first one but not been seen. He must be going to die.
Before we get to Sho's father, there's one thing I do like about the original series, in that they had one point where Tetsuro and Sho actually go to a newspaper or a newspaper place,
Yes.
and like reveal to them like, hey, Kronos is out there, they're doing some really bad stuff out there. You don't believe me? Zoom. Look at my suit.
And you know, I think logically, guys of their age who are suddenly find themselves thrust into some super secret organization death battle, you know, logically, this is what I think they would do. It made perfect sense.
And I love that, because like every other time anything like this situation would happen where it's like, no, we gotta keep it a secret, like we can't. But no, they like go out, they try to contact with other people, try to spread the word out, and the anime does a great job in showing like, yeah, you could try to do that, but Kronos just bombs the place and then blames it on terrorists. That not only shows the ingenuity and cleverness of the main characters, but it also shows how dastardly and how far Kronos is willing to go to keep their secret.
And that's one thing I wish they would have kept in the new one, because, I mean, I gotta agree with that. I wish they would have kept that in, because, again, it was a very well done little scene. And it made perfect sense for them to try and do that. And even like the first time I watched it, I questioned, why didn't they do this? That was, you know, it's not like it didn't have time, and it seemed like a lot of the earlier episodes of the new one was used as filler just to slowly introduce the Guyver's abilities.
Yeah, I mean, I remember in the new one there was one point where they did like talk about like contacting the police or, you know, people of authority, but then Tetsuro shoots down that idea. Which I find that funny, how, like, in the original show, Tetsuro was kind of, like, portrayed as the guy who, like, he really, like, went all out to try to help Sho in any way he can. Whereas to, like, he was the one who suggested, like, them going to the news people. And he was also the one to, like, help out Sho with the problems that he had as a Guyver. Whereas in the new one, after a while, Tetsuro became, like, a very cautious person. Like, he wasn't one to really take risks. He tried, like, everything in his power. Like, the big fact on how they kept the secret of Sho being the Guyver from Tetsuro's sister.
Mizuki,
yeah.
Yeah, and Sho never told his father, which that's common trope that that happens in any series like this. Must keep it a secret from my family to protect them. Not doing a very good job.
Yeah. And both series do the tragedy of what happens to Sho's father really well, I felt. But the newer one did a little bit better because they established Sho's father earlier on.
They gave it time to show their relationship rather than just suddenly springing him up out of nowhere.
Like when Sho's father stayed up late in the evening to wait up for Sho while Sho was battling other Zoonoids.
Not knowing anything at all about what's going to happen. He just thinks his son is just having some problems, and he'll eventually open up to him about it. Little did he realize. Oh boy. I wonder how his father would have reacted to that story much earlier on in the show.
It would have been interesting. I would love to see, and I know they've done this in like the Blue Beetle comics, where they actually have the main character actually reveals the secret identity to his parents, and his parents actually help him out, like help keep his secret identity, help him with any troubles that he's having as the Blue Beetle. And I really wish like more anime manga, but I wish a lot more things would try that. Yes, I know what they're trying to do with like the whole parent type, like, you know, kids nowadays, it's hard to like really open up to their parents. They find it hard to talk with them. The parents also find it hard to talk with them, especially with first children. Like for a parent, for their first child, it's their first experience of being a parent, and oftentimes they don't know exactly what is right to do, how they should handle a situation, if they're going through puberty, how they should talk to them. You know, I understand that, but, you know, sometimes, like with the Blue Beetles case, it's nice to see, like, it working out, like them opening up to each other and, like, talking to each other, talking through their problems.
Yeah, and I do agree. I wish more would be willing to try that, because for the most part, it still feels, though we see it all the time, it still feels a bit on the a little too much on the unrealistic side for them to, you know, just when they a child of this age suddenly gains like superpowers, to simply just not tell their parents about this thing. For one, most kids can't keep their mouths shut. Secondly, it's almost 95% of the time, it's the family is always put in danger because they don't know.
Exactly. And thirdly, parents are a lot smarter than you would think. I mean, I've on a personal note, there's been a number of times where my mom figured out what I was doing, even though I didn't say to her what I was doing.
Exactly, and even still rarely, you see parents actually really question their kids about what's going on. Why are you suddenly being so secretive? Why are you out at late hours of the night and you're not saying anything to me? All parents are generally going to question, you know, what's going on.
Right.
But in the end, and even in this, they don't. You know, Sho's father was questioning it. But what they did do right is that he goes into why he didn't just openly approach him and ask him what was going on. They cover that.
He wanted to believe in his son. He didn't want to interfere with his son's life, but he wanted to be there for moral support whenever Sho was willing to open up to him.
Mm-hmm. And for the most part, I feel it did work. It worked okay. That as far as that goes, that it worked okay here. Probably not could have, you know, perfectly, but it was still okay.
Oh, since we're talking about characters here, You want to talk a little bit about Mizuki?
Oh, yeah, totally. In the first series, again, from the beginning, from the get-go, we know that as soon as she's introduced, that she is Sho's love interest.
Love interest.
Of Doom. Yeah.
Of Doom.
Now, in the first series, in the original OVA, she's just there. She isn't seemingly attracted to anyone. She's just kind of...
except for that,
right.
Makashima guy.
But they didn't really do that in the OVA. Now, in the new remake, on the other hand, they blow that out of the water.
Oh, yeah.
That is established right from the get-go. It's just... It's just kind of hinted at in the OVA. But, yeah, otherwise, you know, the whole thing is Sho doesn't want her to know. She's like the one really big person that they don't want to find out because maybe I honestly don't know. They just want to protect her, but once again, because she... jeez.
Oh, these women won't understand these hard men problems. Yeah, that's another thing that I didn't really understand. Why weren't there any female zoonoids?
Maybe they didn't feel like drawing monster boobs. And then again, it's Japan. Why would they have problems with this?
Well, and the Guyvers have boobs. You know, boob lasers, but still, I mean, like... I never understood that, like, even later on in the new series, spoiler warning again, when the zoonoids take over and, like, people, and for some reason people are starting to accept the zoonoids and even becoming zoonoids themselves, we never see any of the females become zoonoids.
I mean, we can assume that they did, but we only really see, as far as I can remember, because I didn't quite get back through the remake. But I mean, there was one particular scene that does stand out after, you know, I'm not gonna go too deep into not the village. It's like towards the very, very end of the remake, or after Kronos has come out in the open with what they're doing, people can get optimized and become zoonoids themselves. We really only see one person that has done this that looks like a normal civilian,
but really buff.
Yeah. Yeah, spray tans.
Spray tans.
You get one free with every zoonoid optimization.
I look like a cantaloupe.
But yeah, we only see like the one person, and again, I know why they really didn't. But at this point, they don't have a whole lot of time to go into any more.
I did like the Zoonoid rock band.
I actually do not remember that.
That was fun. It's like, whoa, this is like Guar or something.
Then again, monsters as rock stars, I could see that. It's a good gimmick. I like it. Vamor could shoot his lasers out everywhere for a laser light show.
Wow! Yeah.
Oh dear.
Well, anyways, back to the topic of Mizuki. There was one part in particular that in the new series that really stand out to me. Mizuki's kind of like jealousy of
Shizu. Yeah, I know where you're
Shizu.
going at with this.
Yeah, her jealousy with Shizu is like there was one scene where she was like trying to like get some food to Makishima, but she goes in and she sees Shizu and Makishima. Like, Makshima's naked, just getting out of the shower, and Shizu's just calmly just drying him off and, like...
Dressing a wound that he had received earlier. Oh, this is healing. Oh, this... Like, well then. This is a little too comfortable with each other here.
And Mizuki is like, I can't compete.
Obviously not. Just give up and go home right now.
But on the other hand, where they show Suzuki or...
Shizu?
Shizu, thank you. Where they show Shizu being, throughout most of the new series, they show Shizu as being like the very mature, the very, understanding, matronly woman.
Mm-hmm.
After the Zoonoids take over, and it's been speculated that Makishima and Sho might really be dead this time. You know, at first, like, you see her, and she's just calmly doing her regular thing, just kind of sewing some clothes together. It's like, oh, okay. And, like, Mizuki notices this, like, look at her. She's so calm. I mean, I have to be strong just like her. But then we find out that Shizu was like, she, like, says, done! And it's still, like, a little unfinished. There's still, like, some frayed edges. It's very patchworky. And she's like,
things just fall apart.
I can't wait to give this to Makishima-sama. And she's like, oh, man.
She has that suddenly nobody is at home look.
It's like, when we thought that she was, like, all calm and composed, like, she was already snapped. She's already broken. Just like that cloth that she was sewing together.
Wonderful analogy, anime. Good job. And at this point, as you said, Tetsuro is also gone off the deep end, but in his own way.
He's kind of become a recluse in his way. I did wonder while he was, like, on the computer, like, what was he doing? Was he, like, keeping track of Kronos' activities?
Not really a whole lot of point. They're kind of out in the open now with everything.
You know, I wonder if he was, like, doing an angry vlog. You know, like, he had a following of Twitter fans, and he was...
That would have been hilarious. I want to see a YouTube poop or something with that. Or heck, even an abridged version would be hilarious. I have to update my Twitter.
I can't handle this right now. I gotta update my Twitter. Hashtag family being a total prick. Kronos is still evil. Smiley face, hearts, hugs, hugs.
You know, supposedly he's on the internet constantly looking for information on what happened because he thinks Sho and Makishima are still alive, and he's just trying to find everything he can about them. But here's my big thing. You have this, again, plot hole. You have this super giant organization that, you know, can find out anything and everything they want, yet... And you have this one guy who's always on the internet trying to look up information on these two particular people, looking through all of Kronos' activity to try and find them, and you people can't find these people?
Ah, but the anime did explain that with Apton.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right. The lost numbers.
Yes, shall we talk about that next?
Yes, let us do that. Now,
in the Kronos' Zoonoids experimentations, particularly from Barkus, he chose 3 Zoonoid users and, like, kept on experimenting with them, twisting their DNA, messing with their genetic code, and because of this, they became something more than just Zoonoids. They became something else and were labeled lost numbers.
Because they could never, at this point, they could no longer really turn them into any particular thing that they were trying to go for. They just kept...
mutating.
Mm-hmm. One of them had the ability to shapeshift.
Which was Aptum.
Mm-hmm, that's Aptum. One of them could liquefy himself and become one with the ground, and just completely change the surrounding areas around him. And another one... I forget.
Oh, he had a special acid that could, like, meld flesh together like hard concrete.
Yeah, and it's literally, like, it merges, like, with your skin and becomes part of you. So it becomes practically impossible to break out of it without ripping your arms or whatever they're connected to off.
Your dick.
Oh, gosh.
Ah!
No! This is horrible. This isn't what I expected at all.
Forever a lady.
Oh dear. Yeah.
Anyways, what I really liked about the Lost Numbers was that even among the other Zoonoids, they were outcasts who only had each other for comradeship.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of added a nice kind of like a touch to them, especially after what ended up happening with Show's encounter with the Lost Numbers. Show kills 2 of them and only leaves Aptum left alive to retreat in both series, actually.
Yes, in both series. At which point, Aptum is still injured fairly badly, so they end up throwing him back into the experimentation chamber, at which he becomes something even more than he already was.
A Loster number.
Yes, now at this point, the telepathy that the heads of Kronos are capable of using. Yes, they. Oh, by the way, I forget if we haven't mentioned yet. Anyone who's
the Zoolords are pretty much considered gods to the lower class Zoonoids and even the hyper Zoonoids, and can communicate with each other and with the Zoonoid underlings through telepathy.
Yes, and at this point, because of the constant experimentation on the Lost Numbers, Aptum is no longer... He's not necessarily on their level, so to speak, but they can no longer track him, use their telepathy on him. He's literally lost.
He's free from their control.
And he's like, technically, because of how strong he's gotten, this would make him their ace in the hole on the Guyver. But now he's got his own agenda. He doesn't care about what they want anymore. He wants revenge, because now his 2 close friends, the only ones he had, are now dead. And they're not letting him do anything about it. So he's like, you know what? Up yours, guys. I'm going to fight.
And now it really was for the Kronos trying to, create perfect human beings with the Zoonoids or whatnot, they're kind of, by classifying each of the Zoonoids into different categories, they're kind of created rifts in them. Like at one point when one Zoonoid, like when Sho and Makishima were trying to sneak into Kronos as disguised as Kronos soldiers, and they get stopped at a checkpoint. And one of the soldiers asks Sho, hey, what kind of Zoonoid are you? And Sho just, names off one, and he's like, what? You're a power type? Oh, come on, how come I couldn't have been made a power type?
Yeah, some scrawny kid like you is a power type, and I'm a Vimor? Oh, come on. And at this point, it does result in a fairly comical scene where the doctor calls and he's like, well, if you really want to change, like, oh, God, no, I'm just kidding. I don't want to go through optimization again.
Yeah. Not too perfect of a system Kronos has here.
Yeah, there's a lot that they'll do. Like, they refer to, again, the Japan branch as, the head of Zoonoid development, but their head scientist, Dr. Barkus, isn't there, and he's creating far more powerful, more efficient Zoonoids. But why is the Japan branch supposed to be the head of everything when obviously the place he's at has way more advanced stuff, and they're making bigger and better things?
I think the Japan branch, as it was in their title, was the head of the Zoonoid development, developing new Zoonoids, creating new types, whereas the other branches were refining those, prototypes that the Japan branch were creating.
Okay, yeah, I see. I can see that. I see that. I see where you're getting at there. Yes. But
anyways, with Aptum. After going through the chamber once again, he develops even more powers. Doesn't he not only able to use his former friend's abilities?
His 2 former ones, no. It's just that his shape. Well, in the old one, he does become a lot stronger, and he can use more of the abilities of what he shapeshifts into. Because in the old one, he could just, if he sees something, he can shapeshift into something that looks like it. Like the first time he shows up in both, he looks like a Guyver. He looks like the Guyver 1 unit. It's very similar to that, but nowhere near the same level as power. We see him again. He's turned into the Guyver 3 unit, and a picture-perfect replication. He even has the tit lasers of Doom.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, in the old version, that's kind of he and Sho fight it out, and this is kind of where the old one just stops. It abruptly, and he kills Aptum. It's game over. It stops right there. Mm-hmm. And the new one, they take it a step further.
It appears that Aptum has died with his encounter with Sho, but in reality, we find out he has developed another ability, which is regeneration.
Mm-hmm. And he can actually absorb the powers of other Zoonoids, as we soon start to find out. Which is
he starts eating people.
Mm-hmm. Remember that super awesome Hyper Team 5 we mentioned earlier? Well, we're really starting to get into some of their abilities. These are the biggest and the baddest Zoonoids that were ever made, and they leave them at that level. They don't just kill them off completely carelessly. They make them go through hell to kill any one of them that they do. And, well, Aptum starts managing to kill them off one by one and absorbing all of their abilities. With the exception of one, which we get to much, much later.
So he's essentially Cell.
Pretty much. That's a really good way to look at it. And Aptum, pretty much he is obsessed with, at the end of the series, Sho and Makishima are supposedly dead. We find out Makishima is obviously still alive. He's trying to find Sho.
Yeah, he's trying to locate Sho, who is in a chrysalis type thing.
Mm-hmm, which, again, no one knows that until they bloody find the thing, and no one knows what in the world it is. Aptum has been keeping Kronos off the trail of Sho's friends, because he knows they're probably eventually going to find him. He's going to be their link to finding Sho. He still wants to kill Sho. So until then, he's protecting them, just for the sake of his own revenge plot.
But it's kind of interesting with Aptum, because even though, he's kind of become a little bit of the Vegeta type. No pun intended.
Right.
Where he, starts off as, an antagonist, he has, a major revenge plot, but then he has a fight with one of the Hyperzoonoids that he didn't kill, but he killed all of this Hyperzoonoid's companions, all of his companions.
Mm-hmm.
So now, it's pretty much a vicious cycle.
Yeah, because the very Zoonoid he didn't kill ends up becoming just like him, only stronger. Because that particular Zoonoid named ZX Toll.
Strange name.
Yeah, he's like a giant beetle with a bunch of laser cannons and a super hard shell. He ends up becoming a lost number as well, only he's even stronger than Aptum. Mm-hmm. And they fight it out, and Aptum just gets his face stomped in. No contest whatsoever.
And the thing is, this X-Toll even has a special, enzyme or antibodies or whatever that prevents Aptum from absorbing him.
Mm-hmm.
Which is oh shit. It's yo, you're more powerful than me, huh? Well, how about if I take that power from my own? Wait, what? No!
Mm-hmm. And pretty much right here during this fight, and the end of the second, is where the newer series kind of cuts off.
Comes to an end with the reveal of the
Super Guyver or whatever. I don't really think. I'm not sure if they gave it a name or not.
It's called Guyver Gigantic.
Really?
Or Gigantic Guyver.
That's the best they could come up with? Okay, I'll take it. Yes.
Here's a fun little fact. In the manga, Makishima gets to use the Guyver Gigantic unit himself, but his version is called Gigantic Dark.
That sounds like an incomplete name. That sounds like there's supposed to be something at the end of that. Gigantic Dark what? You're leaving me hanging here, people.
Gigantic Dark Guyver?
But I don't know anymore. Right, but yes. And the whole reason this Gigantic Guyver has come about is because of the head of all of the Zoolords. And as I mentioned earlier, the Zoolords are like gods. They're like the pinnacle of Zoonoids that, these humans turn themselves into to intentionally have more power than all of the other ones. But there's one in particular that is at the head of all of them, and he is practically a legitimate god, because they trap him in a black hole, and he still escapes. And he's like...
He escapes from the event horizon.
And he's like, whatever. It's nothing.
His name is Archenfell.
Mm-hmm. Sho sees all this go down and realizes that they're not gonna touch this guy.
He's like, I need more power. It's just a mantra that he keeps repeating to himself while he's in that chrysalis. I need more power.
And then we reveal the gigantic Guyver, and...
Show a picture of that beast.
Oh, geez, yeah, let me look this up.
Because that thing is like, woo! Oh, this is good. This is good.
Okay, images.
Eh.
Oh, I see the dark version. Okay.
Oh, wait, that's the dark one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I was just looking at. Okay, and here we go. Found one. This right here, ladies and gentlemen,
is Guyver gigantic.
Mm-hmm. And as it says, as the title implies, it's bigger than the other Guyver.
Bigger, badder,
and
more powerful than a locomotive.
Probably not so much faster than a speeding bullet.
But it can leap tall buildings in a single bound.
Yes, that it could. Very, very easily. But, we see this thing fight off with the lost number variation of ZX Toll, and pretty much curb stomps him without any difficulty whatsoever. And he actually, Sho actually states that the reason he is like this is because he saw Archenfell and he's like, you know what, I've got to have more power, and somehow probably ended up dying and just regenerated again and just kept thinking power. I wish it worked like that. I wish you could get stronger just by constantly chanting power over and over.
Power!
Ho!
Ho! You know what I like about the Guyver Gigantic?
What's that?
Is that it's actually a suit for the Guyver suit. So it's like Sho, then the Guyver suit, then Guyver Gigantic. It's like one of those Russian, doll within a doll within a doll within a doll.
Lol. So I wonder, if you rip out the control metal of the giant Guyver, does it only eat the other Guyver?
I don't know.
And we probably never will. Because sadly, it is at this point this thing gets revealed. Then the series ends. And I screamed in rage.
At least with the original series, it kind of ended on like, okay, it's a cliffhanger, but it's not that bad of a cliffhanger.
Yeah, the only thing that really happened was, and again, they mentioned the Zoa Lords, because during about the halfway point that all this went down, we're introduced to a new character by the name of Murakami. And he seems to have the same telepathy as the heads of Kronos. And again, I'm going based on the original, because we haven't mentioned the Zoa Lords or anything. We don't know what they are. We've seen Richard Guillotte supposedly die. All we know is that for some reason, Dr. Barkus and Richard Guillotte had telepathy. Didn't really explain it. Murakami seems to have the same ability. He seems to be stronger than much stronger than a normal person, and he carries around a pretty huge freaking gun.
It's like the same gun that RoboCop used.
Yeah, only it's even bigger than that, and feels, probably every bit as strong.
Yeah.
But we see him tackle 3 of these, superpower Zoinoids called Enzyme, and Makishima, as the Guyver 3, is losing to. He tackles them, and he transforms into something. And Dr. Barkus is watching through, some satellite imagery, and he's like, oh, is that a Zoa Lord? He has no clue what in the world it is. And we see Guillotte actually finally re-enter the scene of the last scene of the OVA at this point, after it being briefly mentioned that, he won't die that easily.
Mm-hmm. But in the new series, we find out just what exactly he is. He's not a Zoa Lord, he's a prototype Zoa Lord.
Exactly. What happened...
Specifically, Guillotte's prototype.
Mm-hmm. Kronos captured God knows how many people to perfect the Zoalord development before they themselves should decide to turn themselves into Zoalords. And it just so happened that Murakami is the only one that has managed to fully escape from Kronos' grasp. And he's not as powerful as Guyot is. We see Guyot transform into his Zoalord form, and he's actually pretty bad. Creating black holes, gravity controls, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and as someone is pointing out, sounds like Dragon Ball Z. Yeah, it is in a lot of aspects at some points.
It was that time.
Yeah. But again,
actually not really, because this came out like around Dragon Ball era, I think.
Dragon Ball Z made its was released started coming out in 1989. So this came out while Dragon Ball was still coming out. As far as the original.
So Dragon Ball Z copied the Guyver then.
Fight after fight after fight and needing to get stronger.
But with also tension.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't get into the differences between DBZ and the Guyver.
No, we'd be here all night, and we already don't have all night. We're already running a bit late for the sake of covering more ground.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Now, again, like the big cliffhanger for each one is we see Guyot is still alive. What in the world is a Zoalord? And Sho at this point supposedly gets the girl, but then we don't see anything else. In the new one,
the new one.
In the new one, we're supposedly gearing up, to set up for the fight against Archonfel, and it just stops.
I know. It really sucked though too, because like, oh my god, they showed like the big Guyver gigantic unit, and it was like, oh man, I can't wait to see this in action. Last episode. No.
Like, come on. I would be willing to just let them do their own thing at this point. If the manga's not gonna finish. I would still watch it, because you at least have something good and strong to build off of.
Yeah, like maybe they now have to go MangaMan style, area to area, take down all the Zoanoids, and then fight the Zoalord boss at the end of each dungeon.
Mm-hmm. I would be okay. I would even be okay with that if, or heck, if they would release the rest of the story as a video game, I'd be okay with that. As long as I get something to work with here.
Well, there's always the manga.
Yeah.
But even that's incomplete.
Jeez, like, what is it with, like, you know what? The way Kronos creates Zoanoids, the way the manga is written, the way the animes went, this series is one giant, incomplete mess.
I wouldn't say it's a mess, but it is incomplete. It has a lot of great themes going for it, a lot of great drama between the characters, really explores a lot of aspects of, like, the tests of friendship, what it means to be human, and the like, which only a few other ones, particularly the god of manga himself, Ozuma Tetsuka, covered in his Astro Boy series, of the concept of what does it mean to be human, and does a robot have the same rights as a human?
Yes. And it would be good to see a lot more, or maybe not a lot more. I don't want to see this become something, I don't want to see it become its own trope where we see it way too much and it becomes a predictable element.
Mm-hmm. DBZ unfortunately became.
Yeah, sadly, as big as a fan as I am of it, even I call it for its flaws, that it hardcore on its flaws towards the very end.
Yeah.
But
it wasn't as bad as Bleach.
Ha! Yes, and on that note, we've covered quite a lot of ground. If Well, it isn't as bad as the Resident Evil storyline. Thank you!
Thank you.
Oh, jeez, Dusk, thank you so much for pointing that out. God, that became such a convoluted mess. Anyway, on that note, without really going by an episode-by-episode comparison, this is pretty much our wall right here. We could go further. We could go for hours and hours more if we go by a scene-by-scene comparison, because even some of the stuff that was used earlier on in the OVA did show up at some points in the remake and so on and so forth, but we'd be here all night comparing all the tiny little differences between the two. But I think we've done a fairly good job covering all the major differences and a lot of the minor ones too.
Yeah.
So
and we also talked about character differences and how the character is developed. Even got into the villains.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I mean, I would highly recommend checking these out. Now, as far as my personal recommendation, I would probably go with the remake one, because you do get a lot more character development. We do get more action scenes, and things are a lot better explained because they had more time to go into things. Not to say the 80s OVA isn't decent. I mean, it certainly had its charm, and it was a lot of fun to watch. But if you really only pick one, I personally would go with the remake.
Me personally, if you do have the time and energy, both these series you can easily find on the internet, both legally and illegally means. But honestly, I would start off first with the 80s anime to kind of get a little taste of the Guyver before going into the more well-developed 2005 version.
Yes. Again, I liked the 80s version. Certainly not disappointed that I rewatched it for this. I mean, again, it had its charm, and I enjoyed it. But again, I said, it's if you only have the ability to watch one. Now, if you can get both of them, by all means, go for it. Do it, Philly.
I already own the first one on DVD.
And if it were to make a re-release in the U.S., I would probably end up getting it myself. But as far as I can tell, it's not out over here anymore, so
you can get the new one on DVD through Funimation.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there's torrents for the old one.
Yes, there's torrents, so that's how I kind of got the old one. Again, I prefer having a physical medium rather than just a digital one. So, but again,
yeah,
and with that time, we've been going for 2 hours, I've been going for 2 hours now. God, I'm gonna be honest. If first 20 minutes wasn't so great because I had to do the first episode by myself, it just did not hold up. Today was not a good day for me, people. Sorry for anyone who's been listening from the beginning. But anyway,
okay. That's why I'm here, man.
Exactly. Yes. Anyway.
All right, letters to
yes,
Celestia, then?
letters to Celestia for things that we did today.
Yes.
So, would you care to go first, or?
I came in late, so I'll go last.
All right, I am fine with this. Dear Princess Celestia, today I learned once again just how difficult it is to do a show like this when you are by yourself. Oh boy. I learned that, I learned that my brain likes to die on me in the middle of a sentence way too often. I think I need a vacation. Sincerely, your not-so-faithful student, Pony Vegeta.
Dear Princess Celestia, I learned through my many watchings of anime that there are going to be remakes of classic animes from the 60s, 70s, and yes, even the 80s anime. Are they going to be good changes? Are they going to be bad changes? It's a mixed bag dependent. But for the Guyver, I like both the changes and non-changes that both series did with the original manga source material. And I would love to do another one of these comparison reviews for another series whenever we think of one. Yours truly, MangaMan.
Indeed. One thing I should clarify, yes, any and all torrents we get are gotten from one particular location because, again, the Japanese do not care. If, because they, copyright holders, if they don't touch you, they don't obviously. bakabt.me. If they don't have it, you probably don't want it. Because it's probably going to be illegal to have, and someone has been said something at some point in time, and suddenly legal issues. Yes! So, at this point in time, we do not have our next review picked out. I will get with all of you at a later time, possibly on our Facebook page, maybe have someone update our Twitter account, and let all of you out there know what's going on whenever we do get something picked out. Until then, thank you guys for tuning in to us. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. Do tune in. We are back on our regular rotation after the sudden appearance of the Flying Dutchman last week. Thank you guys for tuning in to us. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another review. So until then, guys.
Sayonara.
Exactly. Today didn't go so bad.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Started off a little bit rough, but whatever. I was all for it.
Yeah. Are we off?
We're kind of like talking over the outro right now.
Oh, okay. So yeah, what to review next?
I've got we've got a nice little list here we can pick from, and I've got one or two different things I'd like to look at. Maybe nice. I mean, you've got the list. Anything on there that really stands out to you you'd like to look at?
Can you post the list again? I kind of lost it.
Okay, let me take a look-see at this. Copy.
Copy. Paste.
And
I would like to see Macross Do You Remember Love?
I'd be down for that.
Yes. From my own experience at being a fan of the Macross franchise.
Yes.
And it's not Robotech, damn it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's fine. That's what we'll do. We're gonna do Macross Do You Remember Love, a movie companion of sorts to the original, what we refer to as Robotech here in the U.S. We'll get into that spiel of stuff when we talk about that. Yeah. So, yes, that'll be our next review topic, Macross Do You Remember Love. And, yeah, thank you guys for tuning in to us. Hope you enjoyed it. And remember, Guyver!
Corpse of an orc, Guyver, the setting soul